Hey, good to see you. Thanks for coming. This is another episode of Wireframe, brought to you by Design Systems House. I am your host, Diane D'Amato, and today we're going to be talking about Storybook 10. That's right, Storybook 10 is coming soon. I don't know when, actually. But first, I actually wanted to talk about a lot of this stuff earlier this week, but I've been really busy. This past weekend, while I was supposed to be working on my presentation for Converge, I instead got distracted by working on the book again. And the reason why I got distracted working on the book again is because I'm really kind of anxious about the print quality and formatting and all that layout stuff that comes out of the writing piece, right? Because yes, there's words on the page, but of course it needs to be presented well, right? And it's important for me to make sure that that happens right. And my goodness, this weekend I was in such a poor mood from trying to work with the current infrastructure that I was using, which was Quarto. And I know that it's probably, some way helpful for folks to use Quarto for certain reasons. I know that I've seen examples of people write a book in Quarto also. However, it just wasn't working for me. Between, potentially using latex in there, potentially using Lua to do some stuff in there. Pandoc is shoved in the middle of that somewhere. It was just too much. I mean, some of the things that you would think were the most easiest things to do were just not working for me. So like, as an example, one of the things that wasn't working for me was the code blocks. They were like splitting between pages. Which was weird. You'd think that that was like a thing that would, you expect it to do. Like you wouldn't put it on between two pages unless the block was big. You would have that on a single page, and you would have some white space on the top, no problem. Speaking of white space, why don't I have enough headroom? Let's see if I can fix that. This looks like it's good here. Yeah, okay, that's better. Hi. All right. So yeah, it was just really difficult for me to go ahead and deal with. And I was kind of upset about that up until Sunday. And Sunday, I found out that you can lay out a book using CSS. I was blown away. And because of that, now I've been, what's going on here? Leave me alone. I'm trying to do some work here. All right. Oh, it's AI target. Okay. Apparently this camera is too smart for me. Yes, CSS, right? So CSS can lay out the book. I found a blog post by a person named Ian who did a whole post about this 2 years ago. And that was a really good jumping off point because I think the thing that sold it for me was that he had a photo of him holding the book underneath all of the screenshots of him using CSS to, do the book stuff. Goodness gracious, stop moving. My goodness. I don't know why the AI target is on here. Cancel. Let's see. Okay. We're going to come back in here. I don't know what's happening with me today, but this just isn't behaving. Right? We want this. Nope. Stay right here. Don't go anywhere. Go a little bit lower. This is what I get for playing around with the camera. Anything's possible. Okay. Hopefully it stays. Anyway, moving right along to our main topic today, Storybook 10. We have a couple other topics, but I heard this from a colleague that Storybook 10 is doing some interesting stuff. I mean, there is a post online about Storybook 10, which the big thing about Storybook 10 is a feature of Storybook 10 that's being dropped. So let's talk about what that actually means. Let's see here. We're going to go and get over to our Storybook 10 thing here. This is what's happening right now. CJS, CommonJS, is being dropped from Storybook 10. Okay? So that's what the big news that's going around the internet about is that it's no longer going to be supporting CJS. It's only going to be supporting ESM. For you folks who do not know what the difference is, the difference basically is that CJS was like the original way of being able to import a JavaScript file into another JavaScript file. You can identify this by saying, seeing things like require inside of a file. That usually means that it's going to be a CJS file. Or you'll see module.exports and having exports of resources come out of the file that way. ESM, on the other hand, you could see that by seeing the words like import something from some, area, right? So you see that at the top of the file. And then the exports are like export default function, whatever, or export const, whatever. So it's that syntax that's being kind of introduced, or I guess the CJS one is being sunset. Because I'm pretty sure, well, actually, I shouldn't say that. I think that Storybook did support ESM, or maybe they're internally changing from CJS to ESM in 10. But you could see, I mean, just from 8, 9, and 10, the increase that they're showing over here of, or decrease really rather, of the amount of dependencies that 8 used to have. And now it's very, very light in Storybook 9. And then, of course, in Storybook 10, it's going to be even lighter according to this. Although it looks the tree's hard to see, obviously, now being so small. But that's not the only thing that I want to talk about that got me excited, because my colleague actually talked to me about this. Now, this is in the Storybook docs right now, and it's this component story format CSF. However, this tab says CSF factories, and in parentheses here, experimental. And what this says CS factories are the next evolution of Storybook's component story format. This new API uses a pattern called factory functions to provide full type safety to your Storybook stories, making it easy to configure add-ons correctly and unlocking the full potential of Storybook's features. And it's experimental, RFC, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, the RFC is over here. But before we talk about the RFC, come back to me for a second, because I'm feeling some kind of way about CSF changing again. Effectively, I'm upset, disappointed, feeling lots of emotions about the way that we write stories changing again, okay? I used to write stories in Storybook using stories of. That was one of the original formats from a long time ago about how you would define a story. And I'm really partial to that way of defining a story, because that unlocked the ability to generate stories dynamically. And that was huge for me, right? Because what I was able to do, and I have a blog post about this, it's probably one of my earlier ones, that explains how you could generate stories using the stories of method to create all the permutations of a particular component. And then, because you have those permutations, you can then render those out as assets for your design system designers and their library and all that kind of good stuff. I was doing it in Sketch years ago. It's one of the things that I was most proud of when I was demoing back years ago. It was supposed to be recorded. I never got the recording. I really wish I did, because I think I did a great job demoing that. I was actually really proud of that work. Obviously, Sketch isn't as relevant as it is today, and there's plenty of other tools out there that are able to generate, code to design. In fact, there's a whole suite of things under 2.design that you can look up that is from a team of folks that have been championing that for a while. I think that's Backlight. I think that's Backlight that's doing that. Backlight.dev. I think that's them. It's been a long time, but they of course changed it over those years, right? They eventually changed it to the component story format. I think it was 2 that started introducing this kind of more declarative kind of file that you would end up writing stories in. They ended up doing the MDX version of Storybook. And while you're like, well, no, Storybook supports MDX, it's like, yes, but they've kind of walked it back. Back in like Storybook 6 or so, they were really heavily focused on documentation and being like a documentation platform. While you still can do documentation on Storybook, and many people do, that's less of their focus now. And it's been clear that more of their focus now is on testing. So actually going into the UI and making sure that the components that you're building are actually working properly, okay? So we see that in accessibility testing and the play function, all that stuff that they have. But here is this new thing called CSF factories. And let's just take a look at what we have in the RFC. So what we have here is we have on top, it has the CSF3 story. And here's the boilerplate that effectively makes a story. It's a lot of boilerplate, and it's gotten worse over time, especially from all the TypeScript, accessories that we've been putting on this stuff. But here at the bottom now, this is the new way of doing it. And there's some interesting stuff in here. Like, for example, I've never seen a hash mark as an input, or an import, I should say, rather. I've never seen that. I don't know what that means. I'm kind of curious about what that means. I'll have to look that up later. It's the first time I've seen that. Then in here you have the meta object, and the meta is where you actually add stories, right? And you're exporting, the result of that, right? Now, here's the thing that's interesting to me, is that this kind of looks like stories of. It kind of looks like it. Now, granted, it's exporting a single, const out here, right? This single primary that's happening here. But it kind of looks like stories of. And again, if you're not familiar with stories of, that's okay. The thing that I'm worried about, and this has been a problem with Storybook for a long time. What is going on? Look at me. Look at me. Let me see if I can turn off the AI for a second. Okay. The thing that's worrying me about the new Storybook format, or just Storybook in general, it's my hand again. It's just my hand. It's just like, hey, why don't you follow me around? The thing that I'm worried about at Storybook in particular, and it's been worried about for a really long time, is that they do static analysis on the Storybook story files. What does that mean? That means that the file that you write isn't really the JavaScript that gets run. They look at that file and kind of transform it into another kind of JavaScript for it to run. And there's pros and cons to that. One of the pros to that is that they are in full control of the way that they are expecting you to write a story, right? You could, in that particular ecosystem, you could make up syntax. You could include stuff like, okay, now we're going to say import story from, right? Or you could say import story, or just whatever. You can make up a lot of stuff when you're doing that static analysis and doing kind of a mutation on that to transform it into JavaScript. So that's interesting. But when it comes down to the expectations of a person, especially me, who's a person who likes to hack Storybook a lot, and just likes to, really bang at the tires and do some really interesting stuff with it. If you're going to try to do interesting stuff, you want to be in a JavaScript ecosystem that you're familiar with. And if you try to screw around with a Storybook file, trying to dive into some of the things that are flying around in terms of context and other things, you're going to be very disappointed, because things are just going to break. You're not going to know why. This stuff also happens with some of the configuration files like preview.js inside of Storybook. Because one of the things that I tried to do with that was that I wanted my navigation to be generated as opposed to just hard code listed. And you're like, well, Storybook generates it already. Yeah, but I wanted a very specific structure that was based on metadata about the components. So I didn't have to specifically state these are the the orders of these things. And the reality of it is that that's statically analyzed too. So when I tried to do something that was dynamic to create the hierarchy in that list, it just was like, I don't know what you want me to do, because again, it's not prepared to handle that. So that's one of the things that I just don't really like about Storybook. I'm Not sure how much this gets away from it, how much it leans into it. Time will tell. Although, according to what's earlier up in here, claims that you could do it today. Which I was like, wow, you could do it today? I had no idea. So if you go to Storybook 9, I think it is, or the latest, latest, you could try it out right now. You have to migrate from CSF2 to CSF3, but you could try it out right now, apparently. So I'm at some point going to try it out once I'm not incredibly busy. But this is very interesting to me. And at some point I want to see if I can get Mike Shillman on the program to talk a little bit more about it, maybe a little bit closer to Storybook 10's release. I think that'll be pretty cool. If I'm that popular, who knows, right? The analytics are looking nice for the show, but who knows? But yeah, some really interesting stuff that's going on there. I'm looking forward to seeing what they do. My camera's going to move again. It's okay. It's all right. We're just going to keep it doing live. Do it live. All right, the next thing I wanted to talk about here today is some news that came out earlier this week. And the news that came out is that, let's go to the tab, please. Go to the tab. A couple of packages got hacked, legitimately got hacked. Specifically, npm debug and chalk were hacked, among other things that are down here. And I was looking over this post, and there's some really interesting stuff that's in this post. So these folks here at Aikido, they noticed some packages were getting some new versions released. So here's Arayish, that's getting some new releases. And here's the actual index file. And you can see that there's some weird stuff going on down here at the bottom, right? Like, what's that all about? And what they did is that they de-obfuscated it. And it's still, like, not necessarily clear what's going on. But you do see this window Ethereum request thing happening here. And you're like, uh-oh, Bitcoin incoming. That's exactly what's happening, right? So effectively, what this is talking about is that it would hook into asynchronous request functions like fetch, like xx to r, and basically rewrite any kind of request that's looking like a wallet that would have some coin in it, and sending it somewhere else. And the way that this worked was a phishing email. And this phishing email was sent to some of the maintainers of these large packages. And admittedly, it looks really good. I mean, look at that email. It looks excellent in terms of, like, it looks like a fine, reasonable email, except the domain over here. And there's even a check over here, which is crazy. But this domain here, npmjs.help, that is the thing that really is the thing to pay attention to, because this was only registered 3 days ago, right? That's not good. You really should have, of course, expected a npmjs.com instead of a .help, but .help seems legitimate, unfortunately. So the maintainer of Chalk and other things basically was able to do some work and with npm to rectify it, and has some comments about all over the place. So yeah, there was a big deal. If you ended up using anything like Chalk or anything like that, you have to pay attention to the updates that happen with Chalk potentially, or some of the other packages that are reported on. But here's something that you just, as a word of advice for anyone that's out there. If you get an email from some company saying, hey, there's something that, especially an email you're not expecting, there's something that you need to do, please log into your account to do the thing, right? And there's like a big button there, and it says, log in now or whatever. That's where you got to be careful, okay? You got to be super careful about that stuff, right? One of the things that I typically like to do, especially if I'm not expecting an email like that, one of the things that I'll do is I'll certainly like start hovering over the links. And I will not do anything like this on my mobile device, right? I would not try to like two-factor authentication on my mobile device. Anything that's like account-related stuff, I generally will go to my actual desktop and start doing. And that allows me to hover over a link and see in the bottom left-hand corner where this link is actually going. And I'm saying this because I actually did have to do this last week. So last week, I got an email that looked like it was from eBay. And in fact, it was truly from eBay, from what I could tell. It actually said, no, sorry, not eBay, PayPal. It said PayPal.com in the sender information, right? So it looked legitimate, just like the one that we saw over here. And I'm looking at this and I'm going, it's saying something about transferring a couple $100 somewhere. I'm like, what's this all about, right? And that immediately starts some like emotional reaction, like, oh shit, I gotta get a handle on this. This is bad, right? Because it's money, it's potentially your money. I gotta get a handle on this. But luckily for me, I took a pause and I ended up hovering over the button that was like, do this now. And I hovered over it and I was like, this doesn't look like a login thing. This looks like something different. So I saw some of the keywords and the slashes that were in that URL, and I typed them in to Google just to see what was going on with PayPal on this particular thing. And it is 100% a scam that you need to pay attention to. So here's the scam that's actually happening. What you're able to do with PayPal is you're able to give access to someone for your account. So you could basically share an account with someone. It'd be like a secondary person on the account. And all you need to do this is to share a link with someone. So you'd share the link with someone for them to, again, log into PayPal with. If they're logged in, then it essentially accepts the request. And now this person has access to your PayPal account, which obviously is bad news, right? You absolutely don't want that. So I was able to catch it. I reported it to PayPal, which is the thing that you need to do, so that they stay on top of this stuff. But yeah, that's obviously a little scary. And it actually kind of lit a fire under my butt about changing more of my passwords over to use my password manager. So I've been in the process of doing more and more of that, and I hope to get all of my passwords into a password manager, specifically because the password manager makes it so that the passwords are all unique across all the different places and that they're impossible to guess, right? Because it's all jumbled. So I think both of those two things make it really helpful. The thing that makes me uneasy, of course, is all my passwords being in one place. And if that one place gets compromised, then all of my stuff everywhere is just immediately compromised. So something to be paying attention to. I think the thing that's important for me is that my email, my primary email, will never be in the same password manager. So that if anyone tries to start changing passwords, I'll have a way to stop it, because you need to have an email address to typically reset a password correctly, right? So if they can't have access to the email, then even if they have access to the passwords and the managers and trying to reset them and things like that, well, I guess if they have access to passwords, they'll immediately get in. So I guess it doesn't really matter. Oh, well. Well, can't be secure as much as we want to, I guess, right? But yeah, that's the thing I guess I'm most worried about is having access to all of that stuff. But you can't live in fear, I guess. You have to just deal with what comes to you. But you have to stay vigilant, right? You have to stay into your accounts. One of the other things that I like to do as well is to reduce accounts. So I don't like having a lot of accounts in lots of places. I am like this close to just locking down my Facebook account and never seeing it ever again. That's actually a place where I was getting a lot of emails about like trying to get access to my account. So that one's been in the password manager, which has been good. But yeah, I'm trying to reduce the amount of accounts that you have also is a really good idea, so that you only need to check a limited number of accounts. Having accounts in lots of different places is just grounds for some bad activity, of course. That's all I want to talk about that, but I have one more piece of news that's a small but large piece of news if you're in the design systems community. Something that I guess I didn't kind of see coming, is this post by Dan Mall. Dan Mall posted this earlier this week saying that Peter Kang over at Barrel Holdings, he announced that Super Friendly comes to an end. And you're probably confused because didn't Dan sell off Super Friendly? And the answer is yes, he did. So, yeah, basically, this Barrel Holdings folks, they bought Super Friendly from Dan. Dan was a board member when that actually, during the duration of this, because Dan sunsetted Super Friendly in order to do other different kind of prospects. And the Barrel Holdings ended up saying, hey, okay, let's take that company and potentially try to do something new with it. And I guess they tried and found out it wasn't working. So they are now going to dissolve it, I think, in some way. Discontinue the reboot. That's all they're saying. So Dan has this post. It's actually an Ask Me Anything, where lots of people are asking him stuff in there. There's 91 freaking comments, so at least 40 different questions about what happened there and how he feels. He is sad about it, as the general gist of the whole thing. But yeah, it's just out of left field there. You kind of weren't expecting a company to be, being closed and then opened and then closed again. Kind of interesting take, especially someone that's kind of close to us in the community. But of course, I wish all those folks well in the endeavors that are going to come up there. I know Dan's, doing new things with the Make More Money, I think it's called, his new venture. So it seems like he's doing like a Chris Do kind of direction where he's trying to help people, designers specifically, make more money in their businesses. And probably, I mean, I know he's still doing stuff with Design System University, and I still see like lots of certificates from there. But I see Dan talking a lot less about design systems, I think, and a lot more about the Make More Money stuff. Reasonably so, right? That's what's making money, right? Make more money, make money. That's the whole idea. So totally understandable about that. But anyway, yeah, just some interesting news that came around this week. In terms of design related stuff and development related stuff with the chalk vulnerabilities, but actually, you know what? I'm curious now if AI has any other suggestions about how to keep safe from phishing attacks. So let's see if there's something that we can ask and see if that's something that makes sense. So I have a question for you. Do you have any tips about how you might stay safe from email phishing attacks?
Here are some tips for staying safe from email phishing attacks. 1. Check the sender's email address carefully. If it's from a suspicious or unknown source, it could be a phishing attempt. 2. Hover over links before clicking to see where they actually lead. 3. Don't open any attached files from unknown senders, as they could be malicious. 4. Be cautious of urgent or threatening language in emails, as phishing emails often use them to pressure users. 5. Don't respond to or click any links in suspicious emails.
Okay, those are pretty good tips. And if you are subject to something like this, where you have accidentally clicked a link or something like that, what are the next steps that you should be taking?
If you accidentally clicked a suspicious link, here are the next steps you should take. 1. Disconnect from the internet immediately, or put your device in airplane mode to prevent it from sending information. 2. Run a thorough security scan of the device using antivirus software. 3. Change your passwords for all impacted accounts. 4. Contact the company or organization that was impersonated in the phishing email. 5. Monitor your accounts for any suspicious activity.
Okay. All right, that's pretty good. It was a little bit of an abrupt stop there, but I think those are pretty good ideas, right? I mean, I actually never even considered just like dropping the internet connection. I wonder how good that would be. I mean, I guess if this thing is, like the fetch request situation, right, where it's like intercepting stuff, obviously if you drop that connection, then you can't intercept anything any longer, and then you could start doing what you need to do on your particular device, because effectively the device is the thing that's going to be sending things out to malicious attackers, right? So if you cut it off at the head, then they can't get anything else. What, of course, won't work out is if they have the password, and then of course they can connect on their own. So something to pay attention to there. But anyway, good advice. Thanks, AI. Really appreciate that. So in terms of events that are going on, I mentioned last week that I'm going to be speaking at React NYC, which is a meetup that'll be, I think, downtown, maybe around Chinatown area, Soho area, something like that, on Tuesday next week. So if you're in town for that, come on, stop on by. I'm going to be doing the What is a Component talk, if you're familiar with that one. And let's see, what else is happening? I think that's the one big thing that I'm paying attention to. We did have a Design Systems Wednesday that Maria hosts for us many months. I was actually finally able to attend it. I actually was not busy enough to miss it. So shout outs to all the folks that are in the Design Systems Wednesday over there. That was really good. I do know that Ben Callahan is doing a survey, or did do a survey. I think it's probably closed by now, for people that were involved with Redwoods and things like that. I think it was called, oh man, what was it called? Should I just look it up? Let me look it up real quick. Let's find out if it's available while I do this here. Ben Callahan. Yes, hit enter, please. Okay. Let's see. Is it under the Redwoods? I don't see it here. It's just the membership. Is it under maybe home? Let's see. I do not see it. I see Redwoods Quarterly. No, I don't see it on his website. He might not have updated his website, but that's okay. Yeah, he had a survey that he sent out that was looking for his information. I don't have the details on it, unfortunately, but I wanted to just call out because I like how he's getting involved in the community in a similar way that I would like to get involved in the community if I wasn't so busy. Speaking of community and being involved with it, right? Of course, go to the discord.ds.house Discord, join us there. And when I say us, there's like probably 20 people in there. No one's really actually talking about anything. But you know what? More people could induce more discussion, right? That's the key, right? That's exactly what hopefully would happen, or you'd like to think so. But again, I don't have the cycles to really be working on that particular facet of community. But I'm glad that someone is like Ben. I know that actually Columbus is where his neighborhood is. He's got a whole bunch of design system people meeting up for, I think, an Into Design Systems meetup that I think is down here. Is that right? Into Design Systems. Oh, this is an older one. Okay. Yeah, there's an Into Design Systems Columbus. I think that's going to be in a few weeks, potentially, with some big names to look out for. So if you're in that neighborhood, absolutely, you should definitely show up to that and learn a thing or two or network with a person or two. I think it would be a good idea. In terms of jobs, unfortunately, not a lot of jobs. I did see a job post at Hearst Magazines for here in New York, hybrid. It's for a senior design systems engineer. I think it's going to be a little difficult to fill. Well, maybe it won't be. And I say that because difficult to fill mostly because it is a New York City hybrid role. All right, so expensive just because you're in New York City. But the range for the salary is $133,000 to $150,000, which is a little low for a senior person for New York. So it is a magazine, though, so you know how publishing is, or maybe you don't know how publishing is, but not a lot of money in publishing, and I'm going to attest to that right now. It's a little bit of a difficult struggle out there. So I'm not sure how they're going to fill that legitimately. I shouldn't say legitimately. I'm not sure how they're going to fill that based on those criteria. I'm sure that there's a person out there that's looking for a job in New York that they will snatch that up and do a really good job. Unfortunately, I feel like that's a little bit underpaid, but it's better than not being paid at all. So I'm confident that whoever shows up in there is going to do a bang up job, and be happy that they're not in the rut that many other people are. We were talking about it actually at the Design Systems Wednesday today. There's a handful of people out there that are actually still in a bad spot looking, and it's not great out there. And my wife and I, we've both had conversations about what does that look like, right? Like, what does it look like, if shit hits the fan, and what do we do? And the answer is we're not sure yet, and we don't want to have to think about it until we have to think about it, right? Right now, we're living blissfully, living comfortably, and we're grateful for that, of course. But if it becomes a problem, then we're going to need to make some changes, right? And that's what you have to do. You have to make some changes. But not going to come to that right now. Right now, things are okay, and we're looking forward to bigger and brighter things in the future. 2026 is coming right around the corner, right? It's September now. We only have another, 3.5 months left, effectively, of 2025, and we'll be on to a new year and more AI bullshit, I'm sure. But anyway, let me know what you think in the comments down below about Storybook 10, about what you might have thought about with phishing attacks and chalk, or if you have some kind of sort of feelings about Super Friendly going back under again, or anything else that might be on your mind. I'd like to know what you're thinking about. So until next time, bye. Thank you.